and shine. It's the Ravens Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Ravens Squad Show live stream. Appreciate you guys for joining us on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're also available wherever you get your podcast after the show is over, so be sure to tune in. We're available Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And don't forget that you can catch Locked On Ravens every day with our boy Kevin Oestreicher, Monday through Friday, and even Saturdays and Sundays, in case there are other news available items ready for you. So, yeah, appreciate you guys so much for joining us again for a new episode. We're going to talk about the Darius Washington news. We'll delve into that. We'll talk about the training camp battles as training camp is ever so close to coming into fruition. We'll talk about the conditioning tests, things that are going to happen before training camp officially gets underway. And if you haven't noticed, the Locked On NFL Top 100 list, in my opinion, way better than the ESPN list that came out and other lists that have come out over the offseason. We'll delve into that and talk about where the Ravens stand in that regard. But first, we're going to be talking about the Darius Washington news, joined alongside by, of course, Kevin Oestreicher, Mr. Locked On Ravens, and Kaji Ismail, who was the missile, legendary former Ravens wide receiver. Let's talk about the Darius Washington news, because it has just been announced that Darius Washington has been placed on the PUP list. So now at IR, there seems to be a chance for him to get, back into action. At least that's what the Ravens are hoping for early on. Q, I'll start with you because you have a expertise in this regard. This is something that you're very passionate about as far as longevity is concerned and getting ready for the season. What are your thoughts about the news that Darius Washington isn't on IR yet, but is on the PUP list?
I think it's great news. I think it shows that where he's at in his process of rehabilitation from the Achilles rupture and obviously the surgery that he has had, that all things are pointing towards him getting back out in the field. This type of injury, if you are conservatively aggressive with the rehabilitation of it, and you put yourself in position with, what I call a stable state, all the peripheral things that really matter towards putting your body in optimal healing, I think that's where for Darius, if he can present that, and clearly he has, to EDC and the rest of the administrative staff of the Ravens, then it's like, okay, we know there's a chance that he could be back. Let's just go ahead and put him on the PUP list. Let's go ahead and see where we're at when it comes to getting him back up to speed. I know there's going to be a long process from now until then, but the fact that it's not just some season ending, hey, we'll see him next year, no worries, but rather him out there on the field and the potential to play, I think that's critical. So movement-wise, what can we expect? I think, again, it is about being conservatively aggressive. It's about going out there knowing that, you feel secure and confident when you're in that rehabilitative state, and getting those, not just the slow twitch fibers, because you can kind of fool yourself. What do you mean, Q? Well, when you're just walking around, chilling, you're in your slow twitch fibers. You kind of, allow yourself to move around. You feel really good. It's when you ramp it up. It's the change of direction. It's the sudden burst. It's the deceleration and trying to come to balance and bring down a big running back. And that's something that he's going to have to look at, or cover a tight end, or make a critical play that prevents a score like we saw against Russell Wilson. All of that, you don't want to have any inhibition in your brain. Like, you want to be like, I can do this. And if he does feel confident and he does feel that smoothness, then I think it's a smart decision for the Ravens to at least explore it rather than just shutting him down for the season.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and one that I think is not necessarily shocking or surprising that the Ravens didn't want to end his season here, especially if there is a chance that he can return. He right now on the PUP list, it's a little different, where we know that if you're placed on IR, your season is automatically over, whereas this does give him the chance to return. And The thing that I am curious about, and maybe Q, you can speak more to this, is we had a situation like this last year with Keaton Mitchell, where, Keaton Mitchell suffered his injury. He was able to work his way back, but clearly when he was back on the field, he was still trying to work his way into form and trying to get comfortable and kind of feel like himself again. That's kind of, for me, where you see it across all sports, where I don't think the story is just cut and dry. A guy gets back on the field and boom, he's 100% back to his former form, right? There is always going to be, and maybe not always, but sometimes there's going to be a sense of, all right, I'm back on the field, but there's a difference between, running full speed in a straight line in a practice setting and, being able to cut and do everything you used to do in a game setting. And I think for some athletes, and you and I have talked about this before, I know, Q, but there's been that, it's a process. It's not just that, oh, hey, you're back on the field and all of a sudden you're back to who you were. If Ardarius comes back in November or December, which I know that's what apparently Ardarius and John Harbaugh have communicated with one another, if that is what happens, do you expect to just be like, boom, Ardarius is all the way back? Or is it more along the lines of like, it might take some time for him to feel comfortable again?
Yeah. So again, muscle inhibition, arthrogenic muscle inhibition is when you have that pain and basically it's sending those signals up to the brain that you're just not sure. And so that muscle inhibition is what you're trying to overcome and get over. Of course, there's also scar tissue. So again, if you're in a good rehab space, those enteropathies that can be disruptions in the fascial tissue and cause a lot of that referred pain going out throughout the body, or those compensation patterns that the cerebellum is saying, look, bro, you can go ahead and feel like you're going to be out there all you want, but I'm the cerebellum. And in the cerebellum, my role is to protect you from you. So there'll be those compensation patterns that now all of a sudden you think, oh man, my Achilles is fine, but dang, my hamstring, because you're trading off one for another and you're just compensating back and forth. And that is a real thing. So if you're aware of it, if you have the right rehabilitative tools, if you have the right mindset, and again, like I said, that stable state, if you're putting yourself in position to have the collagen and the vitamin C to help attending along, if you're doing photobiomodulation or H-bot chamber work, and you're putting yourself in great position with a lot of the other supplements that will help THG, excuse me. If you're putting yourself in those positions to enhance the body's ability to move, then that's where, for me, I feel like, yeah, it's not, I'm never going to just dumb it down. Like, oh, it's just the Achilles. It's a major injury, but I think done the correct way, you can help yourself be able to get back out there in December. Keaton Mitchell's, that's every ligament. And, that's your bursa. That's the different tendons. That's obviously the fascial tissue, the scarring. The cerebellum in his particular case was like, yeah, let's pump the brakes on kind of getting back. And I think it was smart for him and the organization to have a game plan that's conservative, yet aggressive. Clearly, he played last year, but you're seeing the patience game pay off for them by what we saw in OTAs, where he was explosive, where he wasn't limping, where he wasn't favoring the leg. So a lot goes into it. And I think if you're smart and have a good game plan, good realistic mindset for himself, and then it's the other piece. You're talking about plays and games and game planning, nomenclature. Zach Orr is in a different space with his nomenclature. You got to be in those meetings. You got to be able to assimilate all that information very quickly. And if you can, then I think it will help out Ardarius and help out the coach. Oh, Ardarius on top of it. Let's just go ahead and put it back in there. You got to mentally lock into. That's the other X factor when it comes to, is he ready to come back out and play? We talked about this in, week whatever, the Rams, the Lions. We talked about this when we played Cleveland. Oh yeah, he knows it. Boom, he knows this signal. Oh, he knows this call. Those are those are the things the coach is going to be also looking at. Like, can we trust you? And his teammates are going to be like, can we trust you? That's the big elephant in the room that people don't think about. They just think that you're rehabbing. Well, the mother players, they ain't rehabbing. They're playing full speed, and they've been in every single meeting. So there is a huge difference when it comes to what we can expect mentally from this whole process for AD to get back out there.
What about, and this is something I'm sure you're very passionate about, preventing injuries like this, because there are, these Achilles injuries that are happening. Maybe it's the same amount that it's been in the past, but it just feels like we're getting these, ligament injuries more and more and more. What are your thoughts about what teams are doing around the league to prevent injuries like these from occurring?
So I think this is where I get controversial, because I don't think that the right formula is being addressed. And I think when we look at some of the biomechanics of how you train, the nervous system only is going to put out what you put into it. And so again, when we talk about, just what the cerebellum is in charge of your what your body does and the movement and the mechanics without necessarily thinking about it. And, if you're putting in heels down training and then you think that that's okay, well, when you run, sprint, move, change direction in the sport of football, you don't see that heels down training being an asset out in the field. People can talk about turf, but last I checked, the NBA doesn't play on turf, and you still have guys rupturing their Achilles. You could talk about, it's the diet. No, guys nowadays have better access to nutritional foods and supplements than ever before, and the metrics to show that, hey, you're deficient in vitamin D or you have these other deficiencies. Let's look at these biomarkers. All those biomarkers are at that guy's disposal. And if you're a good football team, with your salary cap and with your multi-million dollars that you're investing into your product players, that you want to get back renewed PSLs, that you want to make sure that you're one of those teams, the auxiliary funding when it comes to, yes, luxury suites, when it comes to, yes, all the other paraphernalia that comes along with being that fan base. Well, you should recognize that the bigger picture when it comes to healing isn't just some esoteric corniness of the field, or, well, if we just continue to do what we're doing, but we'll say that the tissue is dehydrated. Whew, boy, this is a family-friendly program, so I won't be using any explicatives, but I get very passionate, and Kevin knows I do, and I'll just say that, yes, there definitely are the finer things that people are missing, and I think it's right in front of us in the most simplest of ways. But this right here, that injury could have been prevented. It's just that the unfortunate billion-dollar strength and conditioning fitness industry has their stranglehold on the alleged science rather than observing the obvious of the science.
Yeah, I was setting you up for that question. I knew that you're very passionate about it, so I wanted to see you fire off a little bit. Well, yeah, that's an interesting take. I know our Darius Washington wants to get back out there. Hopefully people do more preventatively around the league, these teams, to get these guys, more suited for handling the strenuous activity that is football in the National Football League. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the training camp battles that are going to occur. Lots of rookies coming in. We got 11 drafted rookies coming in, a lot more undrafted free agents, lots of battles out there. We'll touch on that next here on the Ravens Squad Show. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you are all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. We all know the Baltimore Ravens are going to be in the thick of it in the AFC and NFL overall as they come in to try and get that Super Bowl championship. So lots of bets favoring the Ravens if you're interested. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are back here at Raven Squad Show, another exciting segment we want to talk about because training camp battles are a topic of discussion every training camp, and there's a lot of great talent here in this Raven roster, but there's still some battles that I think that could be had. Kevin, I will start with you. What do you think is going to happen here in training camp? Do you think that because there's so much talent on this Ravens roster, there's not a lot of battles to be had, or do you think there are some secret battles that some Ravens fans may want to be interested in?
I think both. I think it's both the Ravens having a ton of talent and there not really being a lot of starter spots or even really roster spots up for grabs. But I also think that you can kind of dig pretty deep and find a couple of them that, could be intriguing. I mean, I think the left guard spot is where everybody's looking right now. Angel Voorhees is the favorite in that, and that's who I expect to win that job. But, could Ben Cleveland make a push? Does Emory Jones come back after he was placed on the NFI, and does he make a push? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's possible. So we'll see what that one looks like. But I think also third safety with Ardarius going down between Bo Braid and Sanusi Kane, and obviously, maybe a vet comes in. We talked about that last week, like Justin Simmons or someone. I don't know who it would be, but it's possible. We'll see. But that third safety spot is one that I'm intrigued with. But it's more so for like the last spot on the roster, for example. Like the Ravens drafted 2 corners in this past draft. I don't think they expected Jaire Alexander to be there for him. So were those rookies now competing with each other for one roster spot? Like that is intriguing. You could look at the offensive line and say, well, with 3 offensive linemen coming in that rookie class, is Garrett Dellinger, who was their 7th round pick, is he the odd man out? Because, you have a lot of talent there and a lot of depth, but, Sam and I, we talked about this on the Locked On Ravens show for yesterday, but I mean, I'll tell you, it's possible they have to let go of some guys here that, I feel like they'd probably make the roster if they weren't deep, and it's a great problem to have. But then you talk about guys, it's honestly David Ojabo versus a roster spot. Do the Ravens keep enough outside linebackers to keep David Ojabo on the roster or not? I think we all think, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I think we all think that 5 is the sweet spot for outside linebackers on the roster. So if that's the case, then Ojabo is my 6th, and he would be the odd man out. So there are a couple of, I guess, depth battles to look at. But in terms of the big stuff, where the last couple of years we've been talking about, starting right tackle, who's that going to be? Or, starting receiver, if Rashod Bateman's not ready for his rookie year, that was back in 2021, or, who's going to compete for, the starting outside linebacker job, because at that point, Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney weren't signed in 2023. I think those days are over here. We're more so talking about who are the fringe guys to make the roster. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, I
Isn't
think
it interesting that he says this roster battle with David Ojabo, and I gotta think, if I'm like David, I'm not saying nothing to Mike Green. Like, I'm not giving you no tips. I'm not giving you no understanding. And like, I mean, if everybody wants to walk from one drill to the next, I'm running to the drill. I'm trying to get in all like those scrimmages, the joint practices. Okay, guys, everybody keep it up. Don't just stay out the quarterback. No, I'm slapping that quarterback. Oh, God. Oh, yeah, I'm causing a fight. I'm going to be just so disruptive that it's, wow, like, that's David Ojabo. Oh, he's a dog. Because right now, yeah, I'm not trying to be the odd man out. I'm like, whatever I got to do to make this thing happen for myself, like, let's go. Like, this is warfare. And Andrew Voorhees, like, bro, okay. D Hen, run it my way. Don't worry because Ronnie Stanley's over here, but you're running my way because it's me. Like Coach Warhop, go ahead and curse me out again Watch how I have a perfect practice, perfect steps, no offsides. Watch how I have my hand placement perfectly and just like, bam, just shoving a guy. Pancake blocks. That's my mindset if I'm Voorhees up in this mug. I'm going to come up in there with the Jason Voorhees mask, playing Halloween every time I step out on the field. The kids going to be screaming and like we've all been out to training camp. And so the tunnel where the kids like, yeah, man, I'm coming out there. Boy, I'm having the doggone DJ put on the Halloween music. Man, whoo, boy, you best believe I'll be telling myself, if I was Tyler Linderbaum, I'm like, oh my God, who the hell is this guy right here? Michael Myers is what are we doing? Man, shuck, come on. Like this, hey, and don't get me started. You're talking about some cornerbacks and tripping. Why are we tripping on my boy TJ Tampa? You know doggone well he gonna ball out. Like,
yeah.
Let's just be real. Like what are we saying here? Just because I'm Jaire Alexander, bro. Jaire, man, yo, what's up, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was up in Green Bay. Good. Last I checked, Cheesehead, I'm TJ Tampa up in this mug. What up? Come on now. Who out there? Hey, D-Hop, I'm about to hop on you and lock you down. Put the seatbelt on and click in.
Strap it.
Hey, Isaiah. Yeah, I see how you doing that. I see how Monk be trying to have you isolate up here one-on-one. But watch I knock that ball down and show you my size. Man, don't try to act like you all fancy with the spices because you got a new deal. Bateman. Bate. Just because you got a new deal on me, I can't just intercept it and take it back to the house. Yeah, wait a minute. They play the Commanders? Oh, Terry McLaurin is going to be talking about, I can't do my contract extension until after the Ravens join practice. Or what I do is every time TJ come up to the line for one-on-one to prove himself, dang, I got a little crick right here. I can't. Let me get some water for the hydration. Training camp battles. We just can't just be talking about all regular. Like Trent Simpson. Are you going to be Trent Simpson? Or are you going to be like the Simpsons and be over there on the sideline, talking about some, hey, man, my name ain't Trenton no more. I'm Bart. What's up? Come on. Like, we got to we got to step up, bro, because Roquan ready. He needs to redeem himself. People tripping on him. Well, let's go. Because you got some young bucks. And what is it? Buchanan? Who's the other cat?
Yep.
Teddy.
Okay. Yeah, he's ready. Yeah, he's going to be on special teams. But so are you, Trenton. Make sure your special teams are on point, too. Don't be stingy with the mustard. Make sure you go out there, tackle some people. Okay? We set the tone. We set the tone early. We don't got time to play. Marlon Humphrey trying to be like 2000 Ravens defense. We don't got time. This ain't 2003, 2008, 2013. No, none of that. 2000. I'm off my rent. Go ahead.
That's so good. Iron sharpens iron. I like it. I think that you make a great point. It's training camp battle, so they're going to be battling. And with all this, talent, yeah, they're going to be fighting for a roster spot. So yeah, you're spot on for sure. I want to get your thoughts on Tez Walker though, because a lot of hype surrounding Tez Walker. I know you've been there in OTAs and mini camps. You've seen him a little bit. Is he fighting for that fourth spot, maybe even third spot, and give him some playing time, sharing with DeAndre Hopkins? What are your thoughts?
So it's interesting because I think the fact that you have a coordinator, the likes of Todd Monken, for Tez, it's about his playmaking ability, and he does something very unique, like his height and size. He's not a big receiver. He's just a taller receiver, I would say. But he's got this gorgeous stride, like So his route, you can see where he's running his routes, lot more with confidence in the shorty. And then you add in like that just that raw, I'm gonna go right by you speed. And if he can continue to make the contested catch and show up like he's been, a la when he did get his rep for the Giants game, man, you make every rep count, and he did. I honestly think do that, you put yourself in position to be in the conversation, to like be on the active roster, sure, but be in the rotation when it comes to maybe there's a player or two because of certain teams, the way they're playing. In other words, this corner, this, fifth or sixth corner, they're in big dime or whatever. There's a matchup that we can exploit. And we got Lamar being Lamar, and he's going to look out and do what he does. But, man, we put this play in there, we can get some good stuff from Tez. I think that's where, it would be cool, because I honestly think D-Hop doesn't have that absolute downfield action any longer. Tez can be that guy and be that type of player for what the Ravens need as far as the big play threat.
Kevin, do you agree?
I think the Ravens wide receiver group right now, it is such a unique group. And the fact that you do have D-Hop in a role where, it doesn't have to be D-Hop being number one. Like with Zay and Rashod there, this is the perfect opportunity for everybody in that room to play not just a specific role, but play off of one another. And with the offense as it is, it's not just the wide receivers, right? It is guys like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Derrick Henry and like all the weapons you have. But, we've spent years talking about, like, we've been dreaming about wide receiver rooms like this, and having a mentor like Odell Beckham back in 2023 or D-Hop this season. It helps everybody involved, and it helps everybody be at their best. And I think that Tez Walker he'll benefit from this, because I think that not only are Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman still sponges and they're soaking up all this information from vets, but they also have taken on leadership roles in their own right as younger players. And that was something that both Zay and Rashod talked about last season, and they're obviously now another year older. So I think that it's just this perfect mix. It is a perfect mix of vets and young guys in that room, to where, sure, it might be a little bit on the younger side, especially when your top two players were Zay and Rashod Bateman, but I don't think they needed, like, at least this version of the team, I don't think they needed prime D-Hop. Like, sure, it would have helped, like, it would have been great, but it's not going to make or break them. I think this version of D-Hop and the role that he has, and, this version of Rashod Bateman where he is in his career, same thing with Zay. Like, I think all these guys are in the perfect spot to feed off of one another and really make impacts.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I like this receiver room a lot of untapped potential. So hopefully this is the season where a lot of it comes to fruition. Obviously, we're headlined by Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman, but there's a lot of great talent on the third and fourth and five receiver spots. So I'll be interested to see. Just very quickly, Kevin, do you think, how many receivers do you expect the Ravens to keep?
Six. 6 is my my big, I think I have a prime number for every position, and 6 is usually that. It just depends. I mean, I could see them keeping 7 in a world. I could also see them keeping 5 in a world. I think 5 is just a little too little, and 7 is just a little too many when it comes to the fact that you also have to keep a bunch of offensive linemen. The Ravens usually stack up on their secondary, so I'm expecting a decent amount of corners and safeties to make it. But if you do keep 7 wide receivers, is that an inside linebacker that doesn't make your roster? Do you keep your defensive line room a little bit more thin there? Is it an outside linebacker? I don't know. I think 6 to me is the sweet spot, and I think that right now you have your 6 in Zay, Rashod, D-Hop, Tez Walker, Tylan Wallace, and LeJontay Wester. I mean, sure, maybe a guy like Anthony Miller could make a push. We saw him in spots for the Ravens last year, or maybe an undrafted guy does make a name for himself. But I'd say right now, for me at least, the 6.
Q, I saw you shaking your head. Do you agree with that notion?
Yeah, so that's where I think if again, whether it be a Jabo, whether it be one of the linebackers, if you're in that bottom rung, and if you're a receiver like an Anthony Miller and you're in that bottom rung, you better be making those necessary plays on special teams and make sure your name is talked about in the meeting rooms as an upper tier rung, because that's really your chance to make it. And I think that's where, Tez has an advantage. TJ Tampa, both they play gunner. And last I checked, that's a critical position. You can't mess around with gunner. And so if I already played it, I'm on the field. Hey, that's me getting on the active roster. I'll tell you that. And I'm trying to get on the active roster. So if I'm a gunner, hey, bro, remember me, bro. Hey, let's lock this down. I know I appreciate Sanusi and all them too, but I was a gunner. Like, you were you gunner? You weren't a gunner? No. Okay. Well, hey, I don't know what to tell you, bro, but yeah, I'm up today. I'm not in street clothes. It's that important, that critical when it comes to like just what is it that is going to separate me from the other guy and making the roster? That's how tight it is going to be. This is just the way it is. And this, and again, guys, this is why we're saying Super Bowl or bust, because we're having these difficult, minute conversations. We're not talking about like, oh, there's a quarterback battle in Cleveland, or, oh man, we need some chemistry because we got new receivers and a new quarterback, over in Pittsburgh. Or we're not talking about like, well, we got this dominant, group of receivers and we got a franchise quarterback, but is our line going to be okay? How's our defense? We got some coordinator things we got to figure out. We got none of those issues. And that's just in our division. And you go outside our division, and that opens up, the other points that you would look at, as far as other teams. But right now we're looking at just, again, fine tune. Let's fine tune this roster. And if we're talking the bottom third of it, man, that's a good problem to have.
Really good problem to have. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I'm very excited. Let's see what happens. This roster is looking really good. If you're, as you mentioned, if you're trying to make this football team and you're in the bottom, you got a battle ahead of you. So definitely a great conversation. When we come back, we'll talk more about training camp, but we're focusing on the conditioning test, the most dreaded test that Ravens players face because the Ravens have one of the hardest ones in the league. We'll touch on that next here on the Ravens Squad Show. Welcome back to the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we are available on Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time every week, talking Ravens football. Also, make sure you tune into the Locked On Ravens show Monday through Friday. Locked On Ravens himself, Mr. Locked On Ravens himself, Kevin Oestreicher, available to give you the show every single day, even on the weekends if the news gives him the opportunity. We're back here on the Ravens Squad Show. Conditioning test is crazy. I will start with you, Q, because I know you've done this conditioning test time and time again. Maybe not, with John Harbaugh, but the Ravens have been notorious for having very difficult conditioning tests. Let's get your thoughts on it.
Why would you bring up such trauma for me?
I'm sorry.
I got to go back to therapy. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this, have some nightmares, and be okay, I suppose. The conditioning test is so interesting because I think it is a small measure of what is what, but it also is who cares. And so what I mean by who cares, like, okay, like if who was it? Bump Phillips said one time, the word got out that Earl Campbell didn't pass the mile test, and they asked Bump Phillips, head coach for the Houston Oilers, and he said, well, next time I will make sure if Earl has to run 1 mile to run a touchdown or to score a touchdown, then I'll worry. So that's it. Like, it is in context. The context is, like, I'm ready to go. My hamstrings aren't going to explode. I'm going to be fine. Let's go out there and do it. Now, I know the coaches are probably going to be, psychological. Well, everybody's coming in shape. It's a good measurement. It's a metric of showing that, yeah, like we didn't waste time from the end of OTA to the start of training camp. Everybody came in with a good focus, and that's cool, and I think that's great. But yeah, my experience is, with them and what I've heard from so many guys, it's just like, man, you legit cannot feel your legs when you're done with it. And I mean, like for example, I went to training camp with the Green Bay Packers after my stint in Minnesota, and literally we have I think it was, if you did it before you left, it was 300-yard shuttles. If you did it when you got back, it's 5 300-yard shuttles. My God, man. I was like, I'm getting it done before I leave. But it was so crazy because our rest period was shrunk down, and I about died. It was insane. But I think it's just a good measure of where you're at in your conditioning. And then you got guys like Chris McAllister who, didn't really care too much about his, conditioning, and just would go into camp with and he was honest about it. He goes, man, I ain't do nothing. I don't care. I was like, bro, what are you talking about? I'm getting in shape during camp. I was like, my God, man. So yeah, you got a whole eclectic group of guys that will, just handle it in every different kind of way. But make no mistake about it. Well, that was then. This is now. The nowadays is you got to pass it or else you can't practice. No, thank you. I'm trying to pass that, get it over with, and put it in the rearview mirror as fast as I can.
I feel like this conditioning test is like it's like you there's the saying that to be a Raven you have to beat the Steelers. I think to be a Raven you have to beat the conditioning test. I think that's that's the new saying, or maybe it's the old saying, I don't know. But we saw, I think the most recent maybe egregious example of someone not being able to pass it was Ben Cleveland. And wasn't it like 2 weeks or something, or a week?
It was a while, yeah.
That he couldn't pass it, and then that was like the headline. That was like the headline of the day. Yeah, right there. I mean, we were on Ben Cleveland conditioning test watch. It felt like every single day for the majority of that. So look, it's tough, and I guess it pushes you, and with that, as Q said, brings some rough memories and soreness alongside with it. But I mean, I guess they really want, they really want their guys to be great. So I mean, at this point, hopefully we don't hear any news. No news is good news, I think, in this case, where everybody passes it and you're good to go, because you're not going to hear about it if everybody does, but you certainly will if a guy's not out there for conditioning or other reasons. And John Harbaugh goes up there and says, he's working through some things or going through some stuff. So, I think the Ravens clearly have a standard, Q, as you know, and, it's one where they need their guys to be in that tip-top shape. And how do you test that? Well, you go through a pretty grueling conditioning test. Is a pretty good way to test it.
Q, do they actually do they train for the conditioning test? Do they do the conditioning test beforehand? Players to do that, or do they just try and stay in shape and get ready for it?
So if you're, with the Ravens, what they've done is, guys from a rookie first year standpoint, they will get an opportunity to run it while they're in their peak shape. And then you report and you run it. And I think for the veterans, they're veterans. And so you're like, all right, well, you're on your own. They'll give you a template of what to kind of do to build up and make sure that you're not taking it for granted. And so that's fine. That's great. But still, it's a test that I don't know if we have many track and field athletes or former athletes or track and field fans, but man, running that quarter lap, I'll tell you, if the fans really want to try this out and see what it feels like, go down to your local high school track and you run one all out 400, and then you give yourself 1 minute of recovery and run another all out 400, and then you give yourself another 1 minute 30-second recovery, and you run an all out 200, and then you follow that up with an all out 200 after 1 minute 30 rest. So basically you will then follow that up with an all out 100-meter sprint, and then follow back up with a 100-meter sprint. You're just shy of a mile. Death has overcome you. Your hamstrings have just seized up. Your lung capacity is next to nothing. And as opposed to doing all of it, you only did 400 meters all out. So you ain't passed the test. That's the point I'm making. You ain't passing it. Don't act like you passing it. If you do pass it, Kevin Oestreicher will give you an autograph signed football, and I will be like, yo, hold on to that. But you're not going to pass it, so, you're going to have to hold off from the Kevin Oestreicher football.
They don't want my autograph. They want your autograph. I don't know. I'm signing the autograph.
I'm too militant.
Oh,
I'd be like, nah, hey, we can't just be like just doing what we think we doing. We got to be serious about this.
Oh my gosh. I ran track against a college team 3 years ago, and I was in my mid 30s, and we just ran a 40-meter, and they're cross country runners, by the way, and they just cooked me. So I can't even imagine, doing that, running 400 meters, a minute rest. I die. It's impossible.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing when you're talking about this test. The lactic threshold, death.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's no way I'd be able to do that, man. That is nuts. All right, well, that's a crazy thing to think about. I think I'll be a little more courteous to these Ravens players that they don't pass it on the first try, because that is one heck of a conditioning test for sure. Hopefully it gets them ready for the season. It usually works. These guys are, especially the offense, they're on the field, time of possession is crazy, 11, 12. Oh, it's too much. It's too much. When we get back.
Whoa. Let's not forget that this whole, they're on the field for 11, 12 play drives. That had nothing to do with the conditioning test. That's all up here. Like, they're trying to trick us. See, football shape is when you do football things, not the conditioning test. So you get in shape when you play football. Like, that's when, if Todd Monken or if John Harbaugh and Zach Orr get together and they're saying, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have, a 2-minute offense period, 2-minute defensive period. Then we're going to move the ball. Let's see who can compete, blah, 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 blah. And you get on that right there, and it's hot out, and you're full pads, and that is football shape. That is going to help you for the regular season, not the conditioning drill.
So you don't agree with it? You don't think the conditioning test should exist? It's just, it doesn't prove anything. It's just for the coach's ego.
No, the conditioning test does nothing.
I love it. Okay, so I will be extra, partisan to anyone failing the conditioning test. I'll be like, this is nothing. They'll be ready when they're ready, and then they'll play some football. That's awesome. Well, we got one more segment to go. When we get back, we'll talk about the Locked On NFL Top 100 list. There were some Ravens that were in it, some Ravens that weren't, and a lot of pretty good, rankings, if you ask me, and some not so good. We'll touch on it. Mr. Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, was a part of it, so he'll have his to say next here on the Ravens Squad Show. Welcome back to the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we are available Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to hammer that into your heads because we are here talking Ravens football every single week, nonstop, rain or shine, no matter what is going on. Football season, regular season, off season, we'll be here talking Ravens football. Locked On NFL, the podcast group, they had the top 100 list. ESPN's had their list. We had CBS have their list. A lot of other people have had their list, but I think Locked On really hit the nail on the head with their list. Some People may not agree with it, but I want to make sure that we give Kevin the opportunity to talk about who was on it for the Ravens and where they stand out.
Yeah. So 4 Ravens made the list. I wish there were more, but only 4 did. I'll go backwards. So Roquan Smith made the list at number 89. So he snuck on to that list. You got a big gap. And then you get into the nitty gritty here. Kyle Hamilton, number 26 on the list. So Kyle Hamilton getting some love. Derrick Henry up at number 14. And then, Lamar Jackson, he came in at number 1. Finally, Lamar Jackson gets some recognition here for his season that he had. And actually how it shook out was the top 5. It was Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Myles Garrett, Joe Burrow. So Myles Garrett actually was ranked higher than Joe Burrow was on this list. And I know there are a lot of different conversations about who is the best non-quarterback in football or defensive player in football. TJ Watt just got paid, so there are obviously conversations about him, Jamar Chase, but usually it's that 1 through 4 is some version of Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, and Burrow. That was not the case on this list. Some other rankings here, at least some that were the most shocking non-Raven storylines, is that Travis Hunter, he was number 67 without even playing a snap. So that to me is, I don't, my personal opinion on that is, and that's kind of like what I talk about Malaki. I think he's going to be an awesome player, but he hasn't played a snap yet. So, I want to, have him at least play 1st and 10 with, first game of the season before we put him on any lists. And then Calais Campbell, number 48. So shout out Calais Campbell. We know he's a dude, and we know that. But I know that, at least compared to some of the other players that he ended up getting on the list ahead of, and that includes guys at his positional group like Quinnen Williams, or I don't even think Vita Vea made this list. Leonard Williams was number 88. So others as well. Calais Campbell, I think those were the 2 most controversial ones, I think, to me, that were non-Ravens related. Outside of that, I think Ravens that should have made this list, Marlon Humphrey had a great year last year. I think he should be on here. Tyler Linderbaum, one of the elite centers in this league, he was not on this list. I think he should have been on there. You can make arguments for guys like Zay Flowers, maybe Ronnie Stanley, maybe Mark Andrews if you want to, maybe Nnamdi Madubuike. Right. So I think 4 is look, I'm glad Lamar got his number 1 spot, but there were definitely some Ravens I feel like should have been more represented on this list.
Q, what are your thoughts?
So who was better than Tyler Linderbaum?
The only center I could give you is Creed Humphrey, and even that is,
pushing it.
Yeah.
Was he the only center on that list?
And Ronnie,
I'll look.
Well, Ronnie was a stud of studs, played every game, and recognized he reestablished himself as one of the dominant offensive tackles in the game. Yeah. I mean, this isn't hyperbole. This is him doing his thing. Yeah. I mean, I
tried.
Sam. You and I, we're going to have a talking to of KO once we're done here.
Oh, man.
We might have to have him go through we have to have him go through the rigors of the conditioning test again, so he can do his own conditioning just to tell himself, gosh, I should have just been a little bit more determined to get more guys up on that list. Like Marlon not being on that list, mother of pearl.
Any other centers? There
was not. No other centers. It was Creed Humphrey actually coming in 1 spot below Kyle Hamilton at 27, and then no other centers on the list.
No Beaks, no Linderbaum, no.
I mean,
I'm not even sure Linderbaum was available to vote for.
Where was Derrick Henry at? Or
14. Henry was 14.
So if he's 14, who's blocking for him? Oh, Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley.
There you go. Exactly. And so, Saquon was 10. Derrick Henry was 14. So those were the top 2 running backs of the list.
And Jalen Hurts was 49, 46?
46? Yeah, 46. 46.
Interesting.
Now you're always gonna have that in these lists, though. I feel like of one or two, like what in the world? Whether it's a guy missing the list or being ranked at a certain spot, right? I think every list will have something like that. But I guess I'll take what I can get in the Lamar being number one, which I know people don't agree with. Not, we all agree with it, but I know that there was some backlash just from the, overall national response to it. But I mean, and I don't think Mahomes should be 2. I think Mahomes should be 4. I think that my top 4 here would have been Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes. That's my 4. Lamar 1, Allen 2, Burrow 3, Mahomes 4. I just thought Mahomes out of the big 4 quarterbacks, he was the worst. Lamar was the best. And, Allen and Burrow kind of are sandwiched in the middle. So
where is your ranking in the big 4, Q? Who do you, 1 through 4?
Well, I get you what you're saying. And it's so tough because, the metrics of the sustained excellence that, Patrick Mahomes has had. But, last year there were just so many games where the ball goes one way as opposed to the other, and the Chiefs aren't even the top seed. They had everything go right their way. Heck, even the Carolina Panthers, they were on the cusp of beating them, and just a mistake here or there. Now, next thing you know, you got the Kansas City Chiefs lining up for a field goal to win it, as opposed to them, sitting back and taking a big L. It was just like that time and time again all last year. Heck, even the toe game, you get a big toe down, and you're putting yourself in position of having a week 1 upset. So credit them that they, did what they did. They won games, and clearly it was the AFC representative. But I'm kind of with KO on this as far as just my eyeball test just says he's in that 4th slot, whereas I can see Burrow. But a lot of those games where they, he put up those big numbers, just didn't sustain. Whew. How come they lost, yet Mahomes didn't?
Yeah.
So I can see that. So I'm going to flop them and say Mahomes 3, Burrow 4. And then you got the Allen and Lamar conundrum, where depending upon what fan base you are is pretty much how that's going to go. So since I'm a Ravens guy, I'm just going to say Lamar is 1. But I think in being 1, it's because of his body of work. It's such a stronger body of work than Allen. But then I guess if you're going to say head-to-head, are you saying head-to-head regular season? Are you saying head-to-head during the playoffs? That also matters, and that's something that you got to look at and take into consideration. So there's some factors there that you get swayed on. Ultimately, I think Lamar, for me, goes to the top spot. I think it would be Josh Allen, the 2nd spot. And like I said, just eyeball test, Patrick Mahomes, he's putting himself and putting his team in position to win games. Whereas, Joe Burrow had a dominant offense and whatever you might want to say, but they didn't get the job done like the Kansas City Chiefs did under the helm of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, hard to disagree with you there. I want to get your thoughts on who in this list, and I'm assuming Locked On will do this list every year. Next year, who do you think will be on this list from a Ravens perspective that wasn't on there this year, outside of the the normal that we expect, like Tyler Linderbaum, Ronnie Stanley, and Marlon Humphrey?
On the top 100 list?
Yep.
Oh God, I think Rashod Bateman. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
Yeah, that man. And Isaiah wasn't on it, correct?
Nope.
No, he was not.
Oh yeah, both of those guys. Yeah. I think Isaiah Likely and Rashod Bateman, and I think just Bateman there's something about, when you got, people believe it in you, and they believe in him, and they paid him accordingly. And I think he believes even more in himself more than ever. And I think that's going to really pay off for the offense. And the offense, just one begets another. And yeah, I think if I had a runner up, I would say Marlon Humphrey, just because I think he's out to prove that this team is that team, that dog of a team. And I think just his mindset of trying to be on the level of the 2000 Ravens. Well, you got to call upon your inner, in a good way, Chris McAllister, in a good way. In a good way.
See, man.
In a very good way.
Kev, what about you?
I agree with you. All those names. I'm also, I have Nate Wiggins. Like, I want to talk about Nate Wiggins. I think that he's a guy that, with the year that he had, I mean, I didn't expect him to make this list this year, but, I think he got himself off to a really good start with, he scored more touchdowns than he allowed last season. He had the pick 6, and then he didn't allow a score. I think he's only going to build off of that. And I think, we can talk about roles with Jaire and Nate and Woozier, and I don't think Q likes TJ Tampa. You don't like TJ Tampa, do you? Q? You're not a big TJ Tampa guy. Yeah, it's so. But yeah, I think that Nate proved a lot of people wrong last season in terms of, people weren't sure if his body was going to hold up, coming into the league a little bit on the, skinnier side, and he didn't really have a lot to him. And, he showed he could hold up over the course of a full season and play at an elite level. I think that the sequence that I go back to is him against Malik Neighbors in that Giants game, where he just consistently, Malik had an awesome year, but, Nate was just continuously locking him down. He held his own. He had a huge play against, and that Dallas game, Nate had a couple of rough moments, but he held it down and forced that fumble on CeeDee Lamb to help them secure that game. Like, he stepped up in big moments. And I think that, to me, like, I agree with you. Rashod Bateman, 100%. Isaiah Likely, 100%. Like, Marlon is a guy I think should have been on it this year, but I think he'll get on it next year. I think Nate really has a shot to get on this list, and not even just sneak in there as like, oh, he's 95 or 97. Like, he could maybe be like a top 75 guy next year. I truly believe that about Nate.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that the Ravens are going to have, 3 or 4, if you count TJ Tampa, which I will, because I'm with Q. I like TJ Tampa, dominant corners in this league. I mean, and TJ is going to be a boundary guy. Oh man, it's just, I cannot wait to see this defense in action. I'm very excited about it. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. I appreciate it. Great episode as always. Raven Squad show again Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And don't forget, you can catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast Monday through Friday, even on the weekends, depending on what he does with the news. But he is always available for Ravens fans as we get ready for this season. I want to again thank everybody for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the show and catch us on wherever you get your podcast for the viewers, for the people who are listening in to the show. So again, I appreciate everyone again for joining us here on the Raven Squad show, and we will see you next week.